time to fuel your business success. Welcome to Harmonious at Lunch. We're bringing you bite-sized advice and expert conversations to drive clarity and growth 5 days a week. Make sure you join our Facebook group at humanoff.com/lunch, where listeners like you and our guests hang out so we can find harmony in business together. If you're building a business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. Paul, I see you vibing out here. Are you enjoying the intro music?
I was absolutely enjoying that intro, Brandon. It was thrilling. It was exciting, compelling, and I might have to steal that.
I'll give it to you, no problem. But welcome back in for those of you watching, listening. This is going to be a fun episode. We're talking leadership, but we're got a little new twist on it. We're talking leadership through love, building teams through trust and openness, which I think is a super cool topic. I'm excited to dive in, and it's one of those things that probably needs way more attention and has some outcomes and some benefits that we're not even really aware of. But that's why I have a guest with me today to explain all of it. Paul Flowers Jr., welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Absolute pleasure, Brandon. Thanks so much for having me on.
So I'm excited to dive in here because leadership, there's no shortage of information, podcasts, books, I mean, you name it, on leadership in general. But this is a more unique twist that I would say is becoming more prevalent in the recent years, leading through love and trust and openness, vulnerability, all these words. Explain from your perspective, though, what are we talking about here through your lens?
Absolutely. The short version of it, and of course I'll expand, is authenticity, where some people get into leadership positions either through merit or through gifting, for all intents and purposes, where they're gifted or given a title, though they have no structured background, no practical background, no theoretical background. They're just given a title like a practice leader. And they will lead, quote unquote, from a metric-based standpoint. KPIs, target number of calls, best number of sales, right? That type of thing. Which, of course, for anyone specifically, and I might lean towards sales because that's been my background. Anyone in sales, of course, look, we know that. Okay, we know that you got to hit the numbers. It's all about numbers. Last month, it closes on the 28th, 29th, 30th, the 31st. And on the 1st, it's a whole new ball game. And when it comes to people, again, because behind every single one of those numbers produced is a person producing the number, without a certain driving force or a connectedness between yourself and that person, yes, they might hit numbers March, April, and May. But by June, when things get tough and you're just looking at them for the numbers, are they going to perform for you? Right now, if love and authenticity and connectedness are present, absolutely. They'll go through animals and family members passing to needing to change homes or physical injuries. They will go through these things or grow through these things, as I like to say, and perform at the highest and even higher levels when certain things are present. But when they're not present, Brandon, anything can take them out. Anything can take them out. Oh, I scratched my arm on the desk. I've got to go home sick for a week, right? And so when you lead with love, you lead from a place of authenticity. And I'll dive more into that in a second. Let me pause and take a sip of coffee here.
I love it. I mean, because this can technically be a hard conversation. Mm-hmm. Because if you're listening and you're like, oh yeah, no, my employees are the ones that are scratching their elbows on their desk and needing to go home, or they get the sniffles and they're out for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. The immediate reaction based on what you just said is you might want to look in the mirror, because that's probably got a whole lot to do with you and your leadership style. And maybe not. We could unpack that too and say maybe that person is the wrong fit for this culture and this organization if the rest of your people on your team are all A players. So I'll hold space for that too. But the real question then becomes, how do you develop this leading with love attitude, and how do you develop the authenticity in your company culture?
I'm going to do several shameless plugs, and note, I have zero affiliation with anything that I'm about to say. And I namely bring these up because these are things that were very transformative in both my initial career on the phone, as well as progressing into management, leading the best team from a managerial standpoint, then also elevating into the training role and then training for the entire company prior to going independent and then flourishing further from there. Reading, writing, and speaking. I tell my son all the time, and actually it's been an affirmation of his. He's 12 now, and it's been an affirmation of his since he was about 3 or 4 years old. I say, Mace, what are 3 important things? He says, reading, writing, speaking. We don't often read enough. So first nugget I'll drop is picking up books, but not just any book, right? There's a ton of books on leadership. One in particular, it just so happens to be above my head. It's Napoleon Hill's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm sorry.
Is that Dale Carnegie?
Yeah. They're side by side, right? Because these 2 books are, you see, they're at the center of my bookshelf, and they're placed there purposely. We've got Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the latter is the one that, to me, made such a significant difference and impact in my ability to lead. So first off, picking up a book and actually reading it, ingesting it, and basically putting that into your being so that it can come out. Now, how does it come out? It's going to come out through your communication, mostly, right? Verbal communication. Well, I don't know if, majority of the listeners out there have communications degrees and have parents and siblings and friends who are expert level communicators. I didn't, growing up on the south side of Chicago. And even though I went to private school all my life, that wasn't still the case there for me. So one of the things that helped me, and again, this is that second little nugget, is Toastmasters. Again, shameless plug, toastmasters.org. The organization developed over 100 years ago now by Dr. Ralph Smedley. Initially was there to help young men to develop their interpersonal and public communication skills. Obviously, we're not in the 1920s anymore, and it's there for everyone, regardless of race, creed, culture, gender, whatever. It's in virtually every country, well over 100 countries, and it's even been integrated into some companies such that you can get up and not just talk, you can speak. And because we hear things that people talk about, we listen to things that people speak about. And it seems like such a little nuance in words. Oh, well, they're talking and speaking are the same thing, or hearing and listening are the same thing. No, they're not. Right? No, they're not. For a trained ear, a person that hears a vehicle zip down the street, they hear a car, right? Most people are going to hear a car, but a person that's listening can tell you that's a 1967 Shelby GT, 865 horsepower, blah, 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 for those that are really interested in that. So hearing and listening are 2 entirely different things. And being inside a Toastmasters organization helped me to develop that listening and speaking ability to take those ideas and effectively communicate them in a very concise way when it required being concise. So that's the second thing. The third, and again, shameless plug, 0 affiliation, would be a personal development course that I took, Brandon, called Landmark. And it was the Landmark Forum. The year, this was 2013, as a matter of fact. It was the year before I transitioned into individual health insurance sales. And without going through and attempting to recreate or give away the form in just a couple of minutes or seconds here, what I'll say is this. We all have stuff that we're aware of that we're dealing with. And then there's the stuff that we don't know we're aware, that we don't have that awareness of that we're dealing with. So the stuff that we know, we can do something about, for those that are caring enough to have the self-awareness and the action potential to do something about it. The things that we don't know are bothering us or are an issue for us. How do we do anything about it? Right? It's really tough to work on something or make improvements where you have no foresight, insight, any sight into what's going on. And this particular program for me helped to uncover those, I'll call it blind spots, right? The things that I can't necessarily see are issues, and to put all of those things into their proper perspective and their proper place. And their proper place. So past is past, not present or future, but most people live their past lives in their present, thus creating more of their past lives in their future, if you catch what I'm saying. So again, without going too far down the rabbit hole, those would be a few of the things that I'd learned, that I actually utilized in order to implement this into my life. And I tell people all the time, because I've gotten such great results inside of that training, management, and leadership space. They're like, well, how do you do that? How did you do that? And I say, well, it wasn't me per se. And this is where humility has to come in, because people think, oh, they get a title and I'm just the best thing smoking. It wasn't me. I'm a vessel. I like to say that I'm very well connected to the universe, God, whatever your term for it is. And I let that work through me. And I did that enhancement of how that's working through me by using the things that I shared. So again, How to Win Friends, Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I'll say the right author this time. Then Toastmasters, so that you can take these ideas and effectively communicate them at a moment's notice. And the Landmark Forum, again, by Landmark Worldwide as a corporation, to help you to move some of that stuff out of the way so that you can be authentic and be there with people and actually learn to listen and lead with love.
I love those 3 tips. And I want to add to the second one, the speaking Toastmasters. I probably wouldn't advise that first, but you're 100% correct, because a lot of people, I mean, public speaking is the number one biggest fear for people. What we're doing right now, though, is a great way to practice communication. This networking groups,
Absolutely.
it could be just like getting up in front of your employees if you have a small team, but the communication piece is so crucial. And I find that that's actually the biggest thing that holds people back from their own success, because if you do the other 2, that's awesome. You could read a lot, but not know how to communicate it. And you could discover a lot about yourself and still not know how to communicate. It's the expression of ideas and the inspiration of others that needs to come out to grow and run a thriving business. So I mean, I just want to highlight that one, because I've seen it hold back so many people. And if I look back on my own journey and say, okay, this is episode 380. If I go back 379 episodes ago, this podcast sucked. I was not good at communicating. So that's part of the reason I created this podcast, because I was like, I have to find a way to talk to people and figure out how to communicate better, and also see how other people do it. Oh, cool. I could have a podcast and do that. And I'm not going to say I'm the best communicator in the world, but my own evolution, I've seen how much better I'm able to communicate to employees and team members just because I practiced. But we don't think of that as a necessary skill. And I think it's amazing that it's one of the 3 things that you recommended. So that being said, let's talk about how this applies to leadership within a company. You go through, you read. I mean, if you're not reading, come on, please. Well, I want to amend that statement. Reading, listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks, absorbing information. We'll blanket that real quick. So absorbing information, communicating, and then working on yourself. Shameless plug, humanup.com. Download our app. We can help you through all of those things. If Paul gets a shameless plug, I want shameless plug as well. But you're doing those 3 things. You take it to your organization. What have you seen with people you've worked with, and then in your own organizations, about the growth of authenticity, love, trust, all of the things that we talked about before? What does this actually look like when you put it in practice?
Gotcha. And before I hit those practical steps, because we got a couple of stories that just popped to top of mind. You're absolutely right. And I wouldn't recommend Toastmasters first. I think subconsciously I listed those in order of investment. You can get this book for $2 or $3, right? Toastmasters, it's more like $45 to $100 for the year, depending on where your club is and if they're club dues. And then Landmark is more of a couple $100 of an investment, more time. So to your point, I would actually have Toastmasters last, because quite frankly, I'd work on me first. So I would go to Landmark first, and then I would take some of the books and start to, now that I've cleared stuff out using Landmark, now I take some of the reading, the How to Win Friends and Influence People, and download that into my subconscious, my psyche, and all that, and then take Toastmasters to learn how to give it back to people. So thanks for pointing that out. That was really good to reorganize those a bit. The practical ways that comes across is through not being afraid to use it. And when you're not afraid to use it, what that looks like in actual practice, I'll give you a couple of stories. So I just moved into management from a individual contributor role on the floor. Individual health insurance sales is intense. And again, sales, generally speaking, if you're not hitting numbers, then you're not moving anywhere outside of possibly out the door. So with very limited, I'll say, experience in health insurance sales, I ended up doing very, very well very quickly. So much so that the carrier for that particular company we're representing, they wanted to come down and see what the heck is this guy doing? Because the company goal was 35% conversion, and I ended up third in total sales, but in conversion, I was converting like 84%. Right.
Wow.
So the drastic difference between me and the next person in conversion, it was like something's going on. So when they would listen to my calls, they would hear the conversations go longer, but they were more involved and they were more connected and they were more authentic for me actually opening up and sharing myself as well. That same way that I would handle a conversation on the phone and that sales perspective, which got a person to ultimately buy or do the thing that they wanted to do anyway, which was improve their health through this health plan that I could offer, took that very same thought process into management. So that was the first step, is having it to give it, and then using it in a team setting. So I would, with my teams, be authentic with them. One of the first things that I would do is if I got a new team, and once I did step into leadership initially, I took the entire team off campus or out of the building, and I took them to lunch. It was, I want to say it was between 9 and 11 people. So I took them to lunch on my own dime. And I made sure that I told them there was a budget, right? Because the company is not paying for this. But we all went away from the building and just sat down and broke bread together as a first step. Now, that might not be feasible for everybody, depending on where your teams are and if it's remote and this and that. But that was one of the things that I did that was like an immediate trust builder. I also was very, very, very transparent with them in terms of, hey, look, I know what you have to do, right? Because I have to do it. I had to do it. And now that I'm in this role, I have a different set of responsibilities. And I let them know very clearly what those were. So with respect to what they're still doing and what I did, now I let them know, hey, this is what's being looked at and looked for of you from management. And this is how the performance needs to go. With those pieces of openness, people would come to me. Like I would give them my cell phone. Everybody had my cell phone number. So if we needed to have a conversation, hey, I would tell them, if this is not something you feel comfortable speaking about inside of these walls, let me know that, because people listen, right? And you want to have that open, authentic space where they can share and not feel like they're being judged as the strict employee, but understood as the person. And oftentimes people might get a little scared of that because, oh, well, I don't want them to be seen as my friend or something like that. I know there's clearly still that understanding that, again, I have a job to do and so do you. And again, very transparent. Hey, if you don't want to do this job, you can always leave. We all have that choice. So one of the things I would do is, again, instill in them that idea of personal responsibility, such that if you choose to walk into work, that's your choice. No one's forcing you. No one's making you be here. And the state of Illinois is an at-will state. So much like they can fire you at will, you can leave at will. And that openness, again, just being real frank about these things, it helps people to understand. So whereas there's a way that it's done with no tact, when you bring a person into the fold, let them know who you are, understand that we can sit and break bread together and we still all have things that we need to do and discuss and implement KPIs, numbers to hit, they're more apt to, like I mentioned earlier, get through that sickness a little bit sooner, come back from work a little bit quicker, or realize that they don't need to leave at all. The other thing that I did was an open forum where I asked the team to tell me every single problem that they saw with the company. Now, the caveat to that is that I would not record names, right? I would not record names. And I did that to make sure that no one felt, oh, well, I can't say this because he's going to say that I said it. And I just flat out let them know 0 names are being recorded. So tell me every problem that you see. Again, and because I came from that world, I also saw the problems, but I'm only one person. And now out of 10, 11 people, we can get these other varied perspectives on what the issues are. So we began to work on those things one by one. And again, things like that, being authentic, stepping out to lunch, giving your personal cell phone number, let them know that they can come to you, letting them know what you're going through, and leadership also. It all makes a difference such that that cohesion begins to form. And like I said, they'll damn near run through a brick wall for you.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is, when you really boil it down, it's how to get people bought in and make them feel like human beings that are part of something bigger than themselves rather than just numbers and part of their cog in the wheel. Nobody wants to feel like that in any organization. And this is the make it or break it of, truly scaling in a way that's sustainable versus becoming one of these monolithic companies where people are just there for a job. In most cases, most departments, build something that matters, that people want to invest in and be part of and are proud to work for. And those are the companies that are truly successful, in my opinion. I don't care about stock prices. I care about the whole group of individuals that are there contributing to something and also being taken care of in return. It sounds like you feel the same way, Paul. So this is an important topic. It's a super cool episode. I'm glad we got to have this conversation. Tell me though, where can the listeners go? Because we got to wrap this up, to learn more about you and what you're doing.
Just about everything that I'm doing can be found on my website. I've got one right now, which is paul.health, www.paul.health. And as I'm continuing to evolve in both podcasting, I've got a book that was just released, soft launch this past week, The Hidden Healthcare Goldmine. It's on Amazon. Again, my podcast is there. So literally you can Google my name, Paul H. Flowers Jr. Again, just like that, Paul H. Flowers Jr. And everything should come up. But the easiest way to find it all in one place is going to be paul.health.
I love it. Paul, thanks so much for being here.
You're very welcome. I appreciate you. To the listeners, thank you all for listening in. Bye for now.
I love it. For those of you watching, listening, wherever you are, all the links down below in the description or the show notes. Go check that stuff out. Go check out Paul's new book. That sounds like fun, and his podcast too. So thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Harmonious at Lunch.
Another episode of Harmonious at Lunch in the books. I hope this episode made you think and you grabbed some actionable ideas to propel your business. Don't forget to like, comment your takeaways, and subscribe wherever you're listening so we can help more entrepreneurs just like you achieve harmony in their life and business. For cutting-edge tools that bring clarity to your people and processes, check out humanoff.com.